South African businesses are waking up to a new reality this morning. Employment equity quotas are no longer optional. Today we're unpacking what this means for all of us, while there is a court battle over sex work and how US tariffs are pushing international businesses to Africa. Plus, in the wildcard, we revisit the journey that turned Shosholoza from a minus chant into a sports anthem. My friends, be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss the stories that matter. And now, with all that out the way, let's get into it. So today marks the start of one of the biggest BEE shakeups since democracy. Employment equity quotas are no longer optional. So for years, transformation targets are more carrot than stick. And what I mean by that is that companies that improve diversity in management or pay could unlock benefits, but no one could force them. But from today, that changes. You see, under the new Employment Equity Amendment Act, any firm with more than 50 employees must hit legally binding race, gender, and disability targets set for its sector, or face penalties. So what's new here is enforcement. You see, these aren't guidelines anymore. They're quotas written into law with fines for firms that fall short. Now, in some sectors, white male representation could be capped at just 4%, a number that shows how dramatically workplace demographics are expected to shift if these rules hold. So government argues that the rules are overdue, saying that apartheid left workplaces skewed at the top and locked millions out of opportunity. Now, it stresses that the rules are fair, with targets phased in over 5 years and exemptions for companies that genuinely can't comply. Now, business groups see it very differently. They call the quotas absurd, saying that they strip employers of basic freedom to hire. Now, in saying that, they've already lost in the High Court, but they are now taking the fight to the Constitutional Court, arguing that it's a matter of constitutional rights. Still though, until that verdict lands, this law remains in force and every employer is expected to comply. The Western Cape High Court is stepping into one of South Africa's thorniest debates this week: whether or not to decriminalize sex work. So this case, brought forth by the advocacy group Sweat, argues that current laws violate constitutional rights and push sex workers into dangerous, unregulated conditions. Now, they say that legalization could generate up to 8 billion rand a year in tax revenue and align with government's own HIV and gender-based violence strategies. Now, the Department of Justice hasn't opposed it, and furthermore, the National Prosecuting Authority has even paused prosecutions while this plays out. But critics warn that decriminalization could bring new risks, from basic public health concerns to fears over trafficking and exploitation. Now, they argue that existing laws are in place for a reason and that lifting them could create more problems than it solves. Now, either way, for now, the courtroom becomes the new battleground, and whichever way the judge rules, it would reshape one of the country's most contentious industries. So when Washington slapped tariffs on South Africa earlier this year, most of us thought of it as our problem. Citrus exports at risk, car makers scrambling, trade officials flying to Asia and the Middle East in search of new markets. But take a step back and you'll notice how these tariffs have actually set off a global chain reaction. So countries everywhere are being forced to rethink who they sell to, and as a result, that's created ripple effects right here at home. So while we're trying to diversify under the likes of the African Continental Free Trade Area, other exporters are also eyeing the same turf. So take India, for example. After they were hit with a 50% levy on textiles and jewelry, Indian manufacturers are now moving their operations to the likes of Kenya, Ethiopia, and Botswana, places where the tariffs to the US are just 10%. Now, giants like Raymond Lifestyle already have factories up and running there. So the bigger picture here is Africa is no longer just the source of raw goods heading out. It's now becoming the launch pad for global exporters locked out elsewhere. And before we cruise on to our Bagel Bite of the day, here's a couple other headlines worth knowing. For starters, Celsius is preparing for a JSE listing, but first, its main shareholder Blue Label has to clean house. You see, billions in debt has to be converted to equity in a restructuring which is essential before the telecom can be publicly listed. The Reserve Bank wants to crack open South Africa's payment system. By 2026, non-banks like Yoko and SnapScan could clear payments directly, ending the bank's monopoly and boosting competition and innovation. And Trade Minister Park Tao wants credit bureaus to access far more data, from criminal records to unpaid university fees. Now, this proposal would tighten lending standards and make it far more difficult to borrow. And on to our Bagel Bite of the day. I heard this one on that show, Are You Smarter Than a Fifth Grader? And so if you get this wrong, you know what that means. Let's see what you got. The question is, how many bones are there in the adult human body? Is it A, 206, B, 214, or C, 270? We'll give you the answer at the end of the show. And on to our wildcard section. If you've ever been to a big South African game, you've probably heard it. Shosholoza being belted out across stadiums from Ellis Park to Newlands. Now, most of us know it as a sports anthem, but its roots run way deeper. So the chant began with Ndebele mine workers who traveled from Zimbabwe to South Africa. Now, Shosholoza literally means go forward or push ahead, and it was sung in the rhythm with the swing of pickaxes underground. Now, for men working in brutal conditions, it kept time, lifted spirits, and created a sense of solidarity. So over time, it grew into something bigger, sung on Robben Island by political prisoners, adopted as a symbol of unity in the struggle years, and eventually found its way into rugby stadiums. And so that's why when you hear Shosholoza being sung today, it's not just some chants. It's quite literally a century-old song of resilience that's been carried from the mines to the masses. And as for that Bagel Bite, there are 206 bones in the adult human body. Now, what most people don't know is that we actually start life with about 270 bones, but most of them fuse together as we grow. It's our body's neat little way of trading flexibility for strength as we get older. And my friends, that's it for today's show. Thanks so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed watching this one as much as we enjoyed putting it together. Hope you guys all have a cracker day, be kind to one another, and I'll catch you all same time tomorrow. Cheers.